Over the last few years, it seems that every time a violent incident occurs in the U.S., some liberals in the mainstream media just can't help but speculate as to whether the perpetrator was a member of the Tea Party or another conservative movement. Almost immediately after the name of the shooter in the Aurora massacre was released, ABC's Brian Ross attempted to tie him to the Tea Party.
I want to go to Brian Ross here, because Brian, you've been investigating the background of Jim Holmes here, and you found something that might be significant.
There is a Jim Holmes of Aurora, Colorado page on the Colorado Tea Party site as well, talking about him joining the Tea Party last year. Now, we don't know if this is the same Jim Holmes, but it's Jim Holmes of Aurora, Colorado.
Okay, we'll keep looking.
This isn't the first time that the media has bent over backwards to try to make the Tea Party look like a bunch of violent psychopaths, or try to connect murderous behavior to the conservative movement or its small government philosophy. In 2009, when a Kentucky census worker was found hanged from a tree with the word "Fed" written on his chest, Time magazine wrote that the death, quote, comes at a time when talk media, tea parties, and white-hot town hall meetings have fanned anti-government sentiment. Ed Schultz, as always, kept it classy on his show.
The fever pitch we are experiencing in this country right now, I think, has got a lot of people nervous. A census worker, somebody doing a part-time job for the government, for America. We've had the census in this country for 210 years. This man's name was Bill Sparkman. He was found dead in Kentucky.
As it turned out, the man committed suicide and had admitted to wanting to stage the scene to make it look like he'd been killed because he was a federal worker. In 2009, when a professor at an Alabama university shot 3 of her colleagues, a writer for a publication funded by Forbes Media connected the shooting to, quote, the growing success of the Tea Party movement, which is overwhelmingly white and increasingly vocal in its violent dislike of the nation's first black president. Turns out the shooter was a big supporter of President Obama. In 2010, when a man flew a plane into an IRS building in Texas, a New York Times headline asked whether the man was the first Tea Party terrorist. New York Times opinion editor Robert Wright opined that, given the apparent momentum of the Tea Party movement, it would be nice to know if Stack's kamikaze mission was not an all that shocking emanation from it. But the rambling manifesto left behind by the attacker criticized capitalism while praising communism. That same year, when a Muslim jihadist tried to set off a bomb in Times Square, Robert Dreyfus, a reporter for the liberal magazine The Nation, laughed off the idea that a Muslim could have been behind the act. Quote, it seems far more likely to me that the perpetrator of the bungled Times Square bomb plot was either a lone nut job or a member of some squirrely branch of the Tea Party anti-government far right. Also in 2010, when a man shot 2 security guards at the Pentagon metro station, a Christian Science Monitor headline asked, did right-wing extremism lead to the shooting? It turns out it was left-wing extremism. The man was a 9/11 truther and a registered Democrat. And again, in 2010, when a man stabbed an Islamic New York City cab driver, ABC News, without any evidence, speculated that the stabbing might be, quote, proof the rhetoric surrounding the proposed Islamic Cultural Center and mosque near Ground Zero has created a heightened fear and prejudice against Muslims. In reality, the man worked for an organization that was promoting the Ground Zero mosque. Then came the Gabby Giffords shooting. Almost immediately, the left-wing media set their sights on Sarah Palin.
There is a lot of talk, in particular, about Sarah Palin. And as you might recall, back in March of last year, when the healthcare vote was coming to the floor of the House, and when this was all heating up, Palin tweeted out a message on Twitter saying, common sense conservatives don't retreat, instead reload. And she referred folks to her Facebook page. On that Facebook page was a list of Democratic members she was putting in crosshairs, and Gabrielle Giffords was one of those in the crosshairs.
If Sarah Palin, whose website put and today scrubbed bullseye targets on 20 representatives, including Gabby Giffords, does not repudiate her own part, however tangential, in amplifying violence and violent imagery in American politics, she must be dismissed from politics. She must be repudiated by the members of her own party. And if they fail to do so, each one of them must be judged to have silently defended this tactic that today proved so awfully foretelling. And they must in turn be dismissed by the responsible members of their own party.
But of course, Gabby Giffords' attacker was mentally deranged, with no coherent political philosophy. At this point, there should be no question that the liberal media wants desperately to tie the Tea Party and other conservatives to violent behavior in order to discredit their political views. But it's up to you to hold bad reporters like Brian Ross accountable when they engage in vicious, politically motivated smears. When it comes to horrible tragedies like the Colorado massacre, the mainstream media needs to tell the truth.